As an entrepreneur of 3 8-figure businesses, as an investor, as a husband, as a father, I've learned a lot about business. I've also learned a lot about life. Unfortunately, I've learned a lot about life the hard way. Now, it was just my birthday, so it was causing me a lot of time to think back and reflect on a lot of things that's led me to here and sort of what the rest of my life holds. And so I thought, it's my birthday, but let me give you a gift. And so I want to give you 20 cheat codes that I wish I would have known 20 years ago. For the past 20 years that you can take to build your life way faster. I could have done it faster if I would have had these. Now, I've broken these down into 4 essential categories because it's not just one area of life, there's 4 areas you need to focus on. Now, I want to jump right in and I want to give you the gold, right? Give you the cheat codes. However, I just want to go back real quickly because when I rewind the clock back 2 decades ago, that was 2004. And where I was in 2004 was completely different. I had just sold one of my businesses, my main business, to a Fortune 500 company, and I'd seen more zeros in my bank account than I ever imagined. I had the whole world just opened up to me with every possibility in the world. I was just married 2 years before that, and I just had my first kid. Now, I thought I was set in life. Little did I know that in less than 4 years, my entire world would be completely changed. And these are the cheat codes that got me back to where I'm at today. All right, so the first area we're going to talk about is your career, your business, your money. Now, in regards to that, a lot of people always ask me, Mark, how do you find balance? You seem like you work a lot, you do all these crazy things. How do you find balance? And I would say that life is about being out of balance at different times. So there's really no way that I've found to be perfectly in balance all the time. Rather, I run really, really fast like a lion, and then I eat a big meal and I sleep. Let me give you an example. When I was still working, the only job I've ever had, I started buying bank-owned repos from the bank, and I was fixing and flipping them. And I worked a full-time job. After work, I drove about an hour to go work on this house until midnight, 1 a.m. I drove home, slept, had to drive an hour to work. After work, drove back, and I did that every single night and every weekend for 6 months. I was way out of balance. And unfortunately, it cost me some things. It cost me some relationships and other things, but I was way out of balance during that time. Now, of course, that paid off, and my career has sort of been like that ever since. I'll take a month and a half off with my family for vacation, and then I'll go back into monk mode where I'll completely say no to everything and focus down on business. So when it comes to balance, forget trying to be in balance all the time. Rather think about it as balance in cycles. Okay, now the next part about your business, your money, your career is what I call skill stacking. Now, when I was a kid, about 10 years old, I wanted a new bike. My parents wouldn't get me one. So I had to go make the money on my own. And so I thought, what skills did I have as a 10-year-old? Well, I knew how to mow a lawn, and my father happened to have a lawnmower in the garage. And so I took that skill, mowing lawns, to my market, which was my neighborhood. I knocked on doors. I found some people that would let me mow their yard, and I made money. And my whole life has been about stacking skills and solving bigger problems. So let me give you an example. So I've talked about how in 2008, I got hit by the great financial crash and I had to start over. I had no business, I had no income, and I had to start over, but I still had my skills. And so I was able to take those skills and take them to the market and start rebuilding my entire portfolio. Now, when I think about skills, I think about high value skills. These are ones that are the closest to the money supply, specifically around sales and marketing. So if I was going to do it over again, what skills would I learn? Sales and marketing. I'd learn Facebook ads, I'd learn copywriting, I'd learn video editing, I'd learn storytelling, I'd learn high ticket sales, I'd knock on doors, I'd work on phones. And I would learn those 2 skills and I would continue to stack those up. And then I'd start my own business like I've always done. Now, every one of my businesses, I think I've had 8 now that have gone to over 7 figures in less than 12 months. And they've all been started with no money. Why? Because they've all been service-based businesses that I started using my skills. You see, whether you have a skill pressure washing driveways or painting houses, you can take that skill, offer it as a service for a business, and it requires no money. Then you can take that money and go to the next step. All right, now the next big piece with this skills business making money is the thing of timing versus strategies. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, my story is, of course, 2004, sold my business. I was married, had my kid. By 2007, 2008, I was broke. The real estate market had completely crashed. My assets had fallen in value. And so what I learned in that hard example is that there's no such thing as good and bad timing. There's good and bad strategies. So what does that mean? In that current time in 2008, it was a really bad time to be in real estate with the strategy that I was employing. Now, it was a really good time to get into real estate with a completely different strategy. My book mentor, now my good friend Robert Kiyosaki, talks about how in 2008, he backed up the truck. He got as much debt as he possibly could, and he went and bought as much real estate as he could, and it made him a billionaire. For me, I had the wrong strategy. I was still building and trying to sell spec at a time when the markets were crashing. And so it wasn't a matter of timing. It was a matter of the strategy at the wrong time, if that makes sense. So life is all about timing, and you need to figure out that. There's always an opportunity with the right strategy. All right, the next step in my career, in my business, the cheat code, is focusing on the antelope, not the mouse. What does that mean? There's a story about a lion. A lion's the king of the jungle, can eat whatever it wants, and it could easily snatch up a field mice and eat it, no problem. The problem is that the field mice doesn't have enough calories for the lion. So the lion would field all day long trying to get enough mice to have enough calories, or it could just kick back all day and go get one antelope. So on the top of my management board, I write chasing antelopes to remind me, am I going after the antelopes? So what do we mean by this? Now, we're all going to work. We're going to put in time, but what are we putting time into? And so what I do with my career, what I've always done, the cheat codes, is how do I get to the next level? So let me give you an example. I started writing a cryptocurrency research newsletter. Well, I started buying cryptocurrency, right? And then because I knew so much about it in 2016 when nobody did, people started asking me lots of questions. I started taking all these answers and started putting them into videos and putting them into, online forums, and that turned into a paid newsletter. So that was the next level up. It's like, well, I'm already doing this for free. Why don't I get paid for it? That's a bigger antelope. Then as I started doing that, I started recommending all these different assets. I've been writing that for several years. Now my name has grown, and now I got to be a speaker. And so now because I've become a speaker at all the big events, my network has grown. And so the next logical step was, well, why don't I start a fund? And so now we have a fund, we have investors put money into. And so each step is trying to get to the next leg up. Now my fund was looking at a new company to invest into, a publicly traded company. And I said, wait a minute, why are we investing into this publicly traded company when we could just start our own? And that's exactly what we just did. I just announced, well, it's still sort of private. In the next couple of weeks, I'll have a company going public because I'm continually chasing the antelope in each step. Always asking myself, is this the highest value thing I could be working on? Because I'm going to spend the time working anyway. And what I've found is that the most successful people are basically doing the same thing. They're just working in a different, intentional way. Okay, the final lesson in regards to your business, your career, your money is in the law of attraction. Now, I'm not talking about from the book, The Secret. I'm not talking about sitting in a room and na-na-nu-nu thinking of good thoughts and they're going to come to me. I'm talking about the real law of attraction. And what I've found is the real law of attraction actually works, and here's how it works. Number one, I have to come up with a vision. What is it that I even want? And most people haven't even gotten to that first step. What is it that I want? The more clear, the better. Number two, I have to be able to craft a compelling story about this. I have to create this vision, and I have to be able to tell it properly. A lot of people need to have storytelling. Number three, I then need to project that story, that vision out into the world. Now, if that story is big enough and compelling enough, and my audience is big enough, then people come to me. It attracts who I need. So, for example, I wanted to start this real estate fund. I started talking about it publicly. Next thing you know, I have all the investors, I have all the people come in to help set that up. I wanted to launch this new business line. I started talking about how I want to launch this business line, and people start coming to me that could help me operate it or run it. Now, look, I overlooked this for a long time in my career. This was something I should have caught on to way earlier, and that is, well, as I said, one, being able to craft that compelling story, but more importantly, having a megaphone, having the audience to tell it to. So I didn't start building an audience until about 5 years ago. I'm giving you cheat codes of the last 20 years. I didn't catch on to this until about 5 years ago. And if I would have caught it sooner, my life would be completely different. This is the number one piece of advice I'll give to anybody, my own kids. I'm telling them right now, build that audience, because with that audience, it gives me that megaphone to put my compelling stories out there and allows the law of attraction to happen. So have a vision, learn to tell a compelling story, and have an audience to project that message to, and watch everything in the world that you want just come right to you. The next section of hacks that I want to give you is on relationships. And I know this sounds like, what are you talking about, Mark? This isn't going to help me make money. Yes, it is. Money is a byproduct of your relationship. So specifically, I want to talk about your network. Now, a couple things I want to talk about there. Now, first of all, if I look back over my life, pretty much every single deal I've ever had, I've been invited to, I've participated in, has come from my network. Now, after 2008, when I had sold my businesses and got wiped out after that, I got started by a friend. I had the skills, so I had stacked the skills to do internet marketing. I had a friend who had a mortgage company. He offered me a partnership where I did marketing and we split revenue, and I ended up making a lot of money from that deal. And every other deal I've ever done since has come from the relationships that I've formed. Now, everyone's chasing money without realizing money is a byproduct. So how do you build this network intentionally so they continue to have this deal flow for you? Well, the first thing is, I get asked this question all the time, is like, how do I meet these people? How do I get in good with these people? You hear people on social media tell you that get in the better room, right? Get in rooms with people where, their problems are your dreams, things like that. But how? How do you do that? Well, easier said than done, but the reality is you do really cool things and it attracts cool people. So when I built up a platform, people want to come be on my platform. When people see me building houses, it attracts the neighbors and the other people that are building houses. So whatever I'm doing, I'm attracting those types of people. And as I've up-leveled my life, as I've reached higher levels, I attract higher level people. And so it's not about just going to those people and randomly cold calling them or emailing them and asking if you can be their friend, if they could be your mentor, but rather start to angle your life in a way that is going to attract the people that you want. No different than if you're looking for a husband or a wife. Become the ideal person that you would want that person to be attracted to. If you want to go get the girl, you got to be the type of guy that girl that you want would actually be attracted to. It's no different. It's the same principle in life. Chase relationships first, and the money's going to come. All right, the next part, we're going to stay on relationships for a minute because, again, the right relationships will make you all the money that you need. I want to talk now about friends. Friends specifically, hopefully you are growing. That's my goal, is to always grow in life. And the problem is that as you're growing, the people that you're around may not serve you anymore. And look, your friends are sort of like this bucket of crabs. The bucket of crabs, if you've ever looked at it, is as a crab is trying to crawl out of the bucket, the other crabs are trying to pull it back down. It's not their fault. They're not intentionally doing that. And it's the same with your friends. Your friends like you for who you are now, not for who you're going to become. So let's say that you're out of shape and you want to start running triathlons and get in shape. And you go out to dinner with your friends and they're like, oh, you don't have to stick to your diet tonight. Why don't you just start on that tomorrow? So they're not trying to harm you. They just like you for who you are, not who you're going to become. And so it's important to change your friends. Now, I didn't understand this until 2021. I moved. I'd never moved. I've lived in the same area. I've known the same people, but I moved to Puerto Rico. And when I met a whole new group of people, I realized how important it was for me to change my friends because, they say that you are the sum of the people that you hang out with. I hate to use cliches, but it's true. If I wanted to run a triathlon and I hung out with people that just wanted to sit in the basement and watch Netflix all day, it's going to be hard for me to train for a triathlon. If I hang out with people who are training for triathlons, it'd be easy for me to do that. So you understand that. If I'm around people doing the things I want to be doing, then I'm going to be doing those things. Now, how do you do that? Well, one, you could move. That's what I did. By moving, it forced me to go find new people. And instead of just sitting with the old comfortable friends who I've always known, it forced me to evaluate each new relationship and ask myself, is this somebody that I wanted to be with? Number one. Number two, let's say you don't want to move. I ended up moving back. And so I'm back with my old friends, but what I do is I travel quite a bit. So I go to conferences, I go to events. Usually once a month, I'm on the road going to different events to hang out with these different people, to establish these relationships, to learn from, to draft off of, to work with these other people. So your friends are a big piece. You are the sum of the people you hang out with, and you have to intentionally cultivate that list to become the person you want to be. All right, now we're staying with relationships. We're going to give you 5 into each of the 4 categories. And really, again, these relationships are the most important thing. Now, I want to get into something a little bit more touchy, and that is your family. Now, your family isn't like your friends. You didn't choose them. And specifically, we'll talk about your immediate family, a husband, a wife, a significant other. Now, I think it's probably the most important decision you can make in your whole life. But if you've already made that decision, you may not be stuck. So what do I mean by that? So first of all, your husband or wife should be there to support you. I couldn't imagine doing what I'm doing without my wife to do that. She is the backbone. She makes sure all the stuff is going on behind the scenes. But more importantly, she gives me the comfort, the safety, the support for me to go out and risk it all, knowing that she's got my back no matter what. There's no way I could do that without her. And so you need to have that other person. Now let's say that you don't have that other person. Well, what are you going to do about it then? Well, I think that part of that relationship comes from the way that you treat them, some of the expectations that you set for them. And so you can't really expect your husband or wife to have your back if you're not having their back, right? If you're not out there doing your best to provide and to protect for them, how can you expect them to be at ease and to support you? So it kind of goes back to the first part about if you want to attract the right people, you have to become that type of person. And if I want to be the husband that my wife is supporting, if I want to be the type of husband that my wife will ride or die behind, then I have to be the type of person, I have to be the type of husband that will give her the ease and the ability and the comfort to be that type of person. Your relationships are everything. Your family, your immediate family being the most important. It's definitely worth the intention. All right, and the next tip, staying on relationships, is thinking about them intentionally. All right, so look, you only have so much time with your relationships, with your parents, with your kids, with your spouse, and so really thinking through intentionally, what is it that you want? All right, that's number one. And really, it's all about intentionality. Number two, who do I want? What relationships do I want? And intentionally going and getting those things. So for example, I was talking to one of my friends that I mentor, and he has a personal brand and he's helping people with their diet and fitness. He's doing really well with that. And he's like, I think I'm ready to take the next step and I want to help people with their business. I've done pretty well in business. I can help them. And I said, let's think about this for a minute. Who do you really want in your life? Who is it you really want to become? Who gives you energy? Who takes away your energy? And he went on to say that he really loves working with men. He really gets energy from working with men. He thinks the world needs stronger men, stronger father figures, etc. I said, so then why do you want to just go work with random business people? Why wouldn't you go work with men? Why wouldn't you intentionally, since you're already talking about that, since you already love that, since your energy is already there, why wouldn't you intentionally then go cultivate that to bring those types of people into your life? You see, what happens is most people, we just have around us whoever we have without really stopping to think what it is that we want, and then who do we need to help us fulfill that? So being intentional about it, cultivating that list, and attracting the right people. All right, the last thing I want to say about relationships is I treat my relationships sort of like bank accounts. Now, I don't mean that's transactional, like I'm trying to get something out of every relationship. What I mean is that I want to nurture, I want to put way more deposits in than I take withdrawals. And so I want to always be giving, depositing, because at some point, I might need a big withdrawal, especially from my wife or my kids, and I want to make sure there's enough funds in there. And so what I'm saying is, number one, always give value first. Give. At some point, you may want to take, you don't have to, but always lead with value, always give value first. Number two, be willing to be taken advantage of first. Meaning just give. Who cares? If they don't reciprocate, no big deal. You can cut them off later, but just give freely. Know that being generous helps you more than it helps that other person. It gives you the greatest joy you can have by helping someone else, and it also helps them along as well. So the key to healthy relationships, business, family, friends, whatever, is to give way more than you take. Think about it like a bank account, and you'll never come up short. All right, so now we've gone through your career, your business, you're making more money, we've gone through relationships, and now we're getting to the next one, and that is your own self, your own personal growth. Look, the world around you can't expand unless you are personally expanding. So when I think about personal growth, the first thing I think about is leverage. Now, this is a word that is used often, but is often misunderstood. To me, leverage means I get more output for less input. And so my mantra for the last 2 decades for myself is how, I always ask that question, how can I get more output with less input? How can I get more work done but actually work less? Now, one of the practical ways I've learned to do this is using something called GTD, or the Art of Getting Things Done, written by David Allen. It's a book by David Allen. And basically it starts by this. Number one, capture everything. I walk around with my phone. I have an app called Evernote, and any idea that comes to me, I capture everything. Number two, I have to process and organize all my thoughts. So every day, I have to go through everything that I've captured, and I have to process and organize that. And then I have rules for how I manage that workflow. That's the way that I'm able to get so much done, be able to juggle so many things without losing my mind, and making sure that everything is advancing forward. That's the key, leverage. Just tell yourself over and over, how can I do that? And if you ask that question, how, you're going to find the answer. All right, sticking on personal development, we'll use these 2 tools. This is something I learned from my mentor and now my friend Robert Kiyosaki in his first book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he talks about how all of us should be filling up our mind with more content. And so you need to go learn, man. You need to build your skills. You need to go watch YouTube videos, podcasts, buy courses, hire coaches, whatever. You need to get more information. You need more content. However, what we need to do is we need to get a bigger cup. We need more context. All right, it's that thing that, you don't know what you don't know sort of a thing. And so learn what you know now. Now, with the internet and YouTube, et cetera, you can be about a 70% subject matter expert in about 4 or 5 hours today. So fill up your cup, but then you gotta get a bigger cup. You need to travel, you need to take more courses, you need to meet new people, and this is the way to scale your life. All right, the next greatest hack, if you wanna save time, is paying for advice. Literally, like what we really pay for is we pay for time and certainty. And so I pay to save time. Now, when I first started my very first business, I knew there was a lot of things I didn't know. And at the time, there was a company called Nightingale Conant, and they sold educational programs. And I bought programs from them. Think and Grow Rich, I think, was the very first one. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I listened to those, and I was paying for information. All that research had been done. The life's work had been boiled down to this educational program that I could pay for and I could absorb. As I made more money after I sold my first business, I then started hiring tax strategists so I could learn tax strategy. I hired business coaches who had been there, done that, and could accelerate my growth through my business stage. Today, I join mastermind programs. I'll pay $20,000, $40,000, sometimes even $50,000 for a year to be in these mastermind groups, because my approach has always been, if I can learn one idea, if I go to this conference, if I read this book, if I pay to go in this group, if I can learn one idea, it can radically transform my life. And I want to do it in the fastest amount of time. And so I do that by paying for information. All right, if you really want to grow fast personally, then you have to gain perspective. And this means a couple things. Number one, for me, when I turned 18, 19, I was starting to travel the world. And I realized if I traveled the world, I could start to learn different cultures. I could get more creative and I could start to put different things together. It also gave me a lot of stories and a different perspective on how other cultures live. Today, I also do that by reading all different types of books. I'm trying to be able to connect dots from different disciplines. And so if I only study, if I only read one thing, if I'm like, I think 60% of Americans have never left America, I only know one way, I lack the perspective I need to have the creativity to understand different cultures and to be able to start connecting dots differently. And this is done intentionally. Read, watch, listen to different information, and more importantly, go out and travel. All right, and lastly, for personal development, if you really want to grow, you have to think about what is it exactly that you want, and then you have to be able to achieve it. Now, you need to focus down on exactly what you need to do, because the world is going to take up your time either way. So how do you do this? You've probably seen the example of like a glass, and there's big rocks, medium rocks, and sand. And you can't start with the sand first, because if you start with the sand and then the medium rocks, there's no room for the big rocks. The way it works is you got to put the big rocks in first, then the medium rocks, and the sand goes in last and it fills in. And that's how your life is. So you start with the big things. What are the big rocks in your life? These are my wedding anniversary, my kids going on summer break, my tax returns being filed, right? These are the big things. So I start a calendar, a 12-month calendar, and I write down all the big things that I need to get done. I want to launch a new program. I want to learn a new language. What are the things that I want to do? The big things first. Then I can step back and look at my 12-month calendar. Where do I have time? Where do I have energy? And I can start to put medium-term things in there. Ooh, I'll take this business trip here. Ooh, I'll launch this new initiative here. Those are the medium rocks. And then finally, once my calendar is set up with big rocks, medium rocks, I can start to put the small minutia things in there. If you want to get your life, your dream life, if you want to build that out, you have to figure out what that is. More importantly, you have to build it by making the main thing first. All right, so now we're moving on. And so if we want to continue to grow personally, we have to be focused on our health. Now, this is not cliche, this is serious. If you think about your body, think of it as a vehicle. Are you driving a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, or are you driving an old Volkswagen? Your body is a way to give you energy and channel focus, both of which are absolutely crucial if you want any success in life. So if I'm tired all the time and I don't want to get up and I don't want to go to the gym, if I'm too tired to start working on this report, if I'm too tired to work up late, if I don't have the energy to work on these high-value tasks, or my mind's all over the place, I can't focus, I can't concentrate, how are you ever going to have success? So you have to think about your health. What gives you energy? Specifically when it comes to rest, but even more specifically around your food, and what specifically gives you more focus and takes that away. If you don't learn how to channel your energy and your focus, you're never going to build the life that you want. All right, and then we want to think about our activity levels. Now what happens is most people, as they start to get older, or they start to get busy with their business or busy with their kids, their relationships, they let their own activity level drop. The problem is that activity level is what one, continues to give you more energy. Two, it sort of balances out the amount of work that you're putting in. If you don't take care of yourself first, it's really hard to take care of other people. And as I've gotten older and as I've talked to other people who have gotten older, the key that I've found is staying active. You take a long break, it's really hard to get back into it. So make sure that you're taking care of yourself first. Make sure you still continue to do those active things. For me, it's surfing, it's playing tennis, it's mountain biking, it's dirt biking at least 2 to 3 times a week on top of 4 to 5 gym sessions a week, on top of walking with my wife, taking the dog down to the beach or whatever it is. Whatever it is that you choose to do, make sure you're staying active. All right, while we're talking about health and specifically around energy, I want to hit this one as a specific point because it took me a long time to figure this out. And when I think about my return on my investment, the return on my time, I also think about the return on my energy. So for example, when I look at my calendar and I have the big rocks, medium rocks, and small rocks, I think about what type of energy will these tasks take for me? And I want to make sure that I'm not stacking 2 things next to them that drain too much energy. But I also want to think about it from my relationships. I have relationships. I have some friends that drain an enormous amount of energy from me. When I leave them, I just feel drained. They've asked a bunch of questions or they've done stupid things or I've had to hear stupid stories. And so the relationships, I think about the energy as well. And then that moves to the next one, which is I think about my food and the energy. And so thinking about my food and my diet as energy, I started to look at all my food as energy. And I just ask every time I'm going to eat something, will this give me more energy or less? And if it's going to give me less energy, I just don't eat it. I stay pretty lean, but I have plenty of fat to survive for a long period of time. I don't need to eat it. So look at food as energy. Number 2, what I started doing about a decade ago that's been a super secret power for me is intermittent fasting. I've been doing it for over a decade. Basically, I go from about 18 hours without eating. I'll have dinner about 7, 8 p.m., and I won't eat until about 2 p.m. the next day. That intermittent fasting has been a massive gain for me over the last decade. I wish I would have started that sooner. Then I try to eat no carbs during the day. So even when I do eat around 2 p.m., I don't eat carbs. All my carbs go at dinner. That way, when they slow me down, it's fine. It's nighttime. I'm ready to go to bed anyway. And so I think about that. And the last thing I do when I think about diet is I don't want to have to think about it. I want to pre-make my decisions in advance, and I never want to think about it again. So I basically just eat the same thing every day, which I know sounds boring to a lot of people. But think about spending 30 minutes every day, the amount of time, effort, and energy that would take to think, what am I having for lunch? As opposed to me just eating the same thing every day, knowing that it's going to be exactly what my body needs to give me more energy. All right, the last hack that I want to leave you with is something that's really helped me out over the last couple of decades, really most of my life, and that is having a belief in God. Now, I know that may not be for everybody, but the thing is that once you can realize that not everything is in your control, and you can learn that there are higher powers that have control over things, it allows you to just let go. It allows you to then focus on what you can control and let everything else go. It brings an enormous amount of peace into your life. And so it starts to change your entire mindset where you're starting to think about helping other people and not about yourself. It starts to take your focus off of yourself, which typically makes people depressed, and instead focuses it outward on helping other people. That's a big hack if you want to have more peace and prosperity in your life. Anyway, that's 20 hacks that I've learned over the last 20 years. A lot of these that are newer ones, I wish I would have learned them a long time ago. And I could pretty much guarantee if you started using all of these on a regular basis, your life is going to explode. Because look, success leaves clues. You just got to find other people who already have what you want. You have to do the same things, not that they're doing, the same things that they have done to get there. And if you do those exact same things, you should have about the same results. Let me know what you think. Which of these 20 are you already doing? Which ones will you start doing? Be accountable. Drop them in the comments down below. Of course, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. If you don't, give me a thumbs down. I know this is not my typical video, but if you do like it, let me know in the comments. We can do more like this. But either way, that's what I got. To your success. I'm out.